All right, we are live. Hello, everybody, to a bonus Thursday live show of Keeping Karlsson, or should I say Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts. This is season 3, episode 1 of Short Shifts. And guess what? I'm not the host because Louis Ezekiel's here and he's the host. So, Louis, here you go. Welcome to our YouTube channel. I guess you haven't been here for a while. We haven't been on the podcast for a while. How was your summer?
No, it's been a minute. It was good. I managed to, let's see here. I'm just getting myself set up a little bit better. I managed to, kick a lot of my COVID-19 that I put on with a lot of biking. So that's been good.
Looking great.
Oh, thank you. I definitely was not in game shape when the summer started, but I'm feeling a lot better now. And I'm excited to get into working on the show as always.
Nice. All right. Well, take it away whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to get.
Yeah, take your time. Shams is here to let us
James
know.
is here.
Shams, any
All the breaking
important
news.
We think we've got the most important breaking news, but let us know if we're missing. We got the Canucks. We're just got that just in the nick of time. So now we have like 9 things. We were planning on doing 6 things, so we'll just have to be even faster.
This is classic short shifts though, and this is right in my way. Let's see. Okay, now we can see. Okay. All right.
Ready? Take it away. Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts. We're so glad to have you here at the outset of season 3. This is our season 3 premiere. And I am joined tonight by Elon. We're going to have a little bit of a different setup here as Ben continues to work on his interview series. So we'll have Elon and myself on Tuesdays, Ben and myself in our usual slot on.
It's flipped. I'm going on Thursday.
Oh, you're the Thursdays. All right. Well, I screwed it up already. This is good.
That's okay.
Get these out of the way.
Yeah, you could just go from the start again. You could even just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Take it from the top. That was a good warm up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Hey there, everybody. So glad to be with you. This is Louis Ezekiel, your host, and we are on Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts. This is your season 3 premiere. And we're bringing you a little bit different of a setup here this year. Elon is joining me here today, and he will be doing some of our shows during the week. Ben will be continuing his interview series on Saturdays. So Elon has stepped up to help out with some of the midweek shows. And we're really looking forward to bringing you a ton of outstanding content all throughout the year. Elon, how's it going?
Hey, Louis, so excited to be here. Last season, I jumped in for a couple short shifts episodes for people like completely new to our podcast feed recently. Like it used to be back in the olden days, Brian and I would just do our regular Sunday night. Oh, sorry, I just locked my screen by mistake. Back in the olden days, Brian and I would just do our Sunday show and that would be it. Then a couple years ago, we brought in, sorry, I'm also kicking out the Kings. Then a couple years ago, we brought in Ben and Louis to do these midweek short shifts shows because there's always some news during the week that we need to get caught up on so that we don't want you to miss out. And by Sunday, it's already too late to pick up the hottest free agents or to drop the dead weight. And so now for this season, like Louis said, I'm going to be jumping in to do some of the short shifts episodes Ben and Louis will be doing. We're going to be bringing you content all season long on Sundays and during the week. So just make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson and you'll get everything. But yeah, I'm going to have to get used to this, Louis. You're an expert at doing these short half-hour shows. I'm used to doing 2-hour shows. So I'm going to need you to steer the ship here and make sure that I don't go too long.
Yeah, bud, you're going to have to keep pace here because we move quick. It's all about agility during the midweek shows. On the Sunday shows, we're just trying to get all the information we can and that huge mega download. But during the week, who needs to be picked up, who's on a hot streak, who is widely available and has new deployment. That is what Short Shifts is all about, to help you, win your days throughout the course of the middle of the week. And we've bringing you some breaking news here today to start our show. We've got something from Vancouver. Elon, you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, just as we were, Louis and I were talking last night, like, what should we talk about on the show today? We were like, let's each pick 3 topics that we'll bring up. Since then, like 3 more topics have come up that we just had to bring up. First of all, of course, just the latest breaking news. We're recording this Thursday night. Looks like Vancouver has finally signed their 2 big RFAs. Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes both signed. Apparently, Quinn Hughes, 6 years, $7.75 million. Pettersson, 3 years, $8 million per year. I'm not sure if this is officially official, but that's the latest. So it looks like we'll be ready to go. Anyone who drafted these guys and we're a little bit nervous about are they going to make it in time for the season to start. Don't you worry about it. They'll be there soon. Now we just got to watch game day lines and see who's going to be playing with who, right? Like so far in preseason, I don't know how much to read into this. Like JT Miller's been centering a line and Bo Horvat's been centering another line, and Miller's been playing with Garland and Podkolzin. So I don't know if that sticks. And then like Besser and Pedersen play with Horvat, but that doesn't make any sense, right? So probably JT Miller now goes on the wing for either Horvat or Elias Pettersson. So we got to watch and see now. I'll be very interested to see how these lines shake out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sure the Podkolzin fans would love to see him, stick around with a quality center. But yeah, definitely watch those game day lines because things are definitely going to change here in Vancouver. And certainly, a lot of the worry overblown. Jim Benning did his job here eventually. So a little bit of the heat off him. And we are looking forward to seeing Vancouver hopefully put together a pretty competitive season here after last year. Things did not go the way that they planned.
Yeah, on the podcast, Brian's been all telling me how he doesn't think Vancouver's that good. We had that big debate about Thatcher Demko, and I was thinking, I think that it's going to be pretty good for him, and I think that Vancouver's going to be a decent team. They got OEL, they've got Garland. Now we just have to see how it all comes together. And I'm not saying like OEL and Garland are like saviors here, but I think they're like slight improvements to a team that already should have been better than they were last year. Obviously, last year I consider that a write-off anyways with all the COVID stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what the Canucks do now that they've got all of their pieces in place.
Yeah, I think just getting out there for a standard, relatively uninterrupted season is going to be a big step in the right direction for getting things figured out in Vancouver. Another team that struggled last year had some bad news here today. I'm talking, of course, about the update on Jakub Vrana, who is going to receive shoulder surgery and is out for a minimum of 4 months. Ben and I are debating about this a little bit. I look at this as being a big blow to Detroit overall. Ben is less concerned, so I think we'll hear from his point of view. I'm sure here shortly, or you could check at Short Shifts KK, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to share his views. But I see this as the kind of injury that kind of hurts everyone. Zadina maybe will step into that top line role. He seems most likely to take those minutes, but I think this really is a downgrade for everyone else, especially Larkin. Who was seen as a nice bargain at the draft table, but I would look at him pretty skeptically until Vrana gets back, and it looks like it might not be until after the Olympic break. Zadina certainly has potential, but he hasn't lived up to very much of it in the NHL so far. His best season was 2 years ago when he topped out at about a half point a game in 28 games. And he only was able to do that with a 13.3% shooting percentage, which is more than twice what he's been able to manage across the other 58 games of his pro career. With a little bit more time, maybe he can raise his shots from their very steady 2 a game that he's had during all 3 of his seasons. But I don't see him as coming especially close to replacing Vrana in the short term. The one positive I could take out of this is if you are still drafting, Vrana makes for a very interesting grab and stash. If you have enough IR flexibility to hold on to him until later in the season, because certainly when he gets back, if he's fully healthy, I really people were excited about him. I think there's a lot of appeal to Vrana in Detroit, but I definitely look at Zadina as being a downgrade here, and am pretty worried about Larkin's value. I picked him up in a couple spots because I finally thought it was a safe year to pick up Red Wings and actually cheer for my team, but alas, always wrong on that count.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dylan Larkin last year obviously had that terrible year by his standards, only 23 points in 44 games. It's like a 43-point pace. On Dom Lucian's predictions spreadsheet, he had him around 53, 54 points, which is still like not what we'd be hoping from Larkin. He was much better than that before last season. I guess Dom was kind of hedging there, and now I wonder if you have to go back down to maybe closer to a 50-point pace. I disagree with Ben. I think this cannot be good for Larkin. Also not good for like a Pew Suter, that second line on Detroit. Now if Zadina goes up, who's Suter going to be playing with? I guess maybe like it would be kind of cool if Lucas Raymond gets to now make the team and get a shot. So it might be good for the youngsters, but I think this is mainly just good for Detroit having a better chance at tanking and getting a first overall pick next year. They have tough competition with Arizona and Buffalo, but not great. Too bad. I was excited to see what Vrana can do. I guess we'll find out in the second half of the season. Hopefully he'll come back at 100%.
Yeah, if we're looking for some silver lining, it does seem like Bobby Ryan is likely to make the team now. We may see some of Lucas Raymond, which I think Red Wings fans are pretty exciting about instead of just having him play in Grand Rapids. So some things to keep their eyes on. But yeah, overall, I think this is not great for, anyone on that power play, for your Red Wings goalies, and for Larkin especially. maybe a little bump up for Zadina in terms of giving him an opportunity if you've got him in a dynasty league, but I don't know if that's someone that I would be interested in drafting. Someone maybe I would be interested in picking up at the end of a round or of a draft here is someone that you wanted to talk about, Elon, our most recent hat trick of the preseason, right?
Yeah, so I think I would rather at this point take a swing on Michael Bunting than Philip Zadina. Who knows? Obviously, this is like really early in training camp. So like basically that's the caveat for everything we talk about before the season starts. You don't want to read too much into it, but Bunting scored a hat trick for the Leafs, took 4 shots on Wednesday. It was against like the B team Ottawa Senators, and Toronto was also kind of playing a B team. The Leafs practiced today without Bunting, and so there was Nick Ritchie on a line with Matthews and Marner, and Mikheyev on a line with Tavares and Nylander. Though I did read an article by Jonas Siegel on The Athletic, and he was saying that we've gotten hints of what Sheldon Keefe may be thinking from the Lions front. Plans can change, but for now, the Leafs coach seems intent on giving Ritchie first shot with Matthews when he's healthy and Marner, and Bunting the first go around with Tavares and Nylander. So if that holds, I think this Bunting guy is worth a look at the end of your drafts. Like, could be the kind of thing where you draft him, you don't even keep him through training camp, but if he's going to be playing with Tavares, or hey, if he gets up with Marner and Matthews, this is a guy who had 13 points in 21 games with Arizona last year as a 25-year-old rookie. So he's already shown some hints of being good. Here's a fun thing. John Tavares had an interview and he said that he thought that Michael Bunting reminds him of Matt Molson. So I don't know if many of you remember him. In the early days of Keefe and Karlsson, we were talking about Matt Molson. He scored, I think, 30, 35. I think there was even a 40-goal season for Matt Molson playing alongside John Tavares. So, I mean, I don't know what that's worth in terms of reliability of saying that, you know, if Tavares says a line mate's going to be good, does that make it so? I don't know. But I think that obviously it means he wants to play with Bunting because he had so much success with Molson back in the day. So, yeah, he's a guy who at this point, like, Lewis, call me crazy, but like we drafted in a league just recently, and I took Kyle Palmieri, who we're going to talk about soon, in the last round, and he's obviously someone that if I had to bet, you know, I would expect Palmieri to have more points than Bunting at the end of the year just based on the odds. But I think Bunting is a more exciting choice. So I decided to just drop Palmieri and pick up Bunting because I want to have a streaming spot at the end of my roster anyways. And Palmieri, I felt, was the worst player on my team. So I'm taking a shot on Bunting. Curious to see if I'll be holding him up to the first game of the season. The Leafs play, by the way, on Wednesday. If you really want to think ahead, the Leafs play on the Wednesday in the first week of the season. And a lot of other teams don't start till Thursday. So you could always add Bunting now, get his Wednesday game to start the year, then drop him for someone else if you really want to game it to that level.
Yeah, if you're going to churn that last spot, there's no reason to grab someone that you're thinking, oh, well, he's going to have more points at the end of the season. Like, that's not what you're really thinking about. You're trying to get someone with, you know, some short-term bang. And I like the idea, you know, playing with Tavares and Nylander instead of Matthews and Marner is not that huge of a downgrade. It's pretty nice setup if Bunting can get it. You know, we were worried about him a little bit, deciding to come on over and try his luck in this all-out knockdown, drag-out brawl for these couple spots that are available in the Leafs lineup. But it seems like he has done pretty well for himself. And also, you know, speaking of Keefe, we just got news also that Keefe was extended for a couple years. So if Bunting is a guy that Keefe likes, maybe, you know, he's got a chance with Keefe sticking around for at least another couple seasons. You brought up Palmieri, and if we're thinking about talking about coach speak here, we also had Barry Trotz come out and talk about Palmieri and Wahlstrom, which has been a hot topic of debate. Which of these guys is going to get that first shot on line 1? Trotz said that he's going to start Palmieri on line 1 and Wahlstrom on line 3. And I give that a little more weight than just putting the lines together for the preseason. Both players are widely available. Palmieri only 13% rostered on Yahoo and 15% for Wahlstrom. But we also know that Trotz sounds like he's going to give both guys a shot on that top line. Does that make you more interested in Wahlstrom? Does it make you want to grab Palmieri? Does it want you to stay away from both of them? How do you approach this when the coach is saying that both guys are going to get a shot, but this guy's getting the first one?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I think of last year, Jordan Eberle played on the top line with Barzal and Lee for most of the year until Lee got injured. And he was, like, pretty decent, right? So I would expect if Eberle... Sorry. So I would expect if Palmieri is there, he'll probably do similar to what Eberle did. Like, Palmieri hasn't been jumping off the score sheet like he used to in New Jersey a few years ago. So I'm not especially excited about him, but he would be like a really solid guy there. I do wonder how that top line fits together. I feel like Anders Lee and Kyle Palmieri sort of play a similar game, while Oliver Wahlstrom yeah, I don't know. He's younger, like more of a sniper. I mean, I'm not like a big, like watch the game kind of guy. But I get the sense that Wallstrom might be the more exciting guy with the more upside if he does get that spot. And then Palmieri could be on a PPP line on the third line with Peugeot and Parise. So obviously it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. I think that you got Palmieri as your steady as she goes player. If he's on the top line, he'll be decent. But I think if you want to take a swing, you grab Wallstrom and hope that he gets the job. Of course, the fun thing is that second line, no one even talks about that. I guess that's pretty sad. Brock Nelson, Beauvillier, and Bailey, the BBB line. So
Yeah.
they just like to get that alliteration all set up before the season starts. Those guys are kind of getting forgotten, right? Like Nelson and Beauvillier seem like guys that could be decent next year. But I think the biggest swing you can take, obviously aside from Barzal and Lee, who are the first Islanders forwards you take, I feel like Wallstrom is the one I'm most excited about that you get like in the last round of your draft, and who knows.
Yeah, Wallstrom's your ceiling guy. Palmieri is your floor guy, I think. And you mentioned that second line. I think I'd rather have Nelson over Palmieri just because I know where he fits into the team, and he, is a steady, useful contributor. So he might be the more interesting kind of steady floor guy as opposed to Palmieri possibly here. And I should add as well, Ben has always been a big Palmieri fan, but even he is out on him for this season. So yeah, I think that is someone that maybe you stay away from if Wallstrom is more of that home run hit. Let's talk about a team that has let us down in the past, but is always kind of interesting because there's a lot of opportunity over in San Jose. You've got some guys that you've been bitten by before, but you're just coming back for more. Elon, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like so we just recently drafted this keeper league that you're in as well, Lewis, and my co-manager is John Reed, a big Sharks fan. So I don't know, he's gotten into my ear, and all of a sudden I don't know, I'm getting kind of excited about the Sharks again this year. Like specifically, I'm looking at Brent Burns right now. He's fallen to an ADP of 74th overall in Cupful drafts. That's our Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. It was only 3 seasons ago that Brent Burns was like a top 5 person in fantasy, right? Like he was over a point per game, like over 300 shots as a defenseman, and so yeah, he's fallen off over the last couple of seasons. That's why his draft spot has fallen so much. But I wonder if we should give him some slack. Like again, just like with the Canucks, like last year was a weird season. And I just, again, I don't want to read too much into preseason, but he just had a preseason game versus the Kings where he took 7 shots on goal. That's the Brent Burns that I like to see. He even scored one of those goals. So I don't know. He pays for 42 points last season, averaging only 2.5 shots per averaging only 2.5 shots per game. That was his first time being below 3 shots per game since he broke out back in like 2013-14 when he became a superstar in the league. So I just wonder if people are counting Burns out a bit too much, and he's like a safe guy you can get in drafts that maybe still has that upside to be, not as big, not point per game, but maybe he could get back to being like a 50, 55 point guy with all those shots. So yeah, he's someone that's on my radar. And then I'll throw out another couple Sharks at you, just since I'm already looking at the Sharks, I might as well pay attention. And if you recall last year around this time, we were talking about this fellow named John Leonard, who is getting a top line shot, and we were all wondering, like, what's good? Do you think this guy's going to be worth drafting? What if he sticks with Couture and Meyer? Is that going to be something? And obviously, he disappointed, but let's do it again. There's new players now that are interesting us. Currently, a guy named Jonathan Dahlen, who's a 23-year-old 2016 second-round pick. He was traded to the Sharks for Cupful Tier 5 division namesake Linus Karlsson a year ago. So Dahlen has been practicing on a line with Couture and Meyer. He assisted on a Timo Meyer goal in that game versus the Kings, that preseason game. He had 71 points in 45 games in Sweden last year, so he's definitely not a nobody. I think this Jonathan Dahlen, if he sticks on line 1, he could maybe be the next John Leonard, or hopefully like the version of him that's actually successful and sticks with the team and sticks on that top line and does well. And then just since I'm rambling anyways, let me throw in a couple other names at you really quickly. William Eklund, the guy who was drafted 7th overall in this recent draft. He had a 2-assist game recently, another 1 assist in another preseason game. So he's making a case for himself to maybe stick with the team, especially with Evander Kane potentially not going to start the year. That's like potentially an open spot that Eklund could take. I don't know if he could crack the top 6, though. I mean, he's competing with, again, Jonathan Dahlen, maybe like Alex Barabanov. Like you would think if Eklund can make the team and he's doing well, maybe not only he makes the team, but he cracks the top 6. So he's definitely someone to watch. Barabanov, by the way, 7 points in 9 games last year after getting traded to the Sharks. So that's how he ended his year. So there's like a few guys on the Sharks that kind of interest me, and I just wanted to throw those names out there. Like, don't forget about the Sharks. Brent Burns, I think, in the high end, and then Dahlen and Eklund, people to watch if you want to really take a deep swing.
Yeah, and Barabanov, he had his success during, not the preseason, but during the real season. And I think the Sharks did really like what they saw from him. Obviously, they liked him enough to go out and deal for him here. So that's a name that I'm really interested in. He may be a bit of a roadblock to Eklund. I feel like Victor somewhere is very unhappy with me saying that, but this guy is new to the league, and I think he will take some adjustment. I think it's very exciting, obviously, that he's coming out here and being super successful, but I wonder what his ceiling can truly be on this team, especially if he's not going to be trusted to be out there for first line minutes. I think, I retweeted because Victor was saying he was going to call his shot, that Eklund was going to force himself onto this team with his play. And I think that is very exciting. But I don't know that it necessarily is going to be something for this season where it's going to be, the kind of thing that results in huge numbers for Eklund himself.
Yeah, by the way, Victor is Victor Nuno from the Fantasy Hockey Life podcast. If you're into prospects, that's the podcast to listen to. Lewis and I, Brian and Ben, we try our best with the prospect talk. But, Victor's been talking about William Eklund ever since he got drafted. I think he's been saying to draft him first in any new dynasty league that's drafting players from 2021. Let me mention one more Shark, just to really put myself at risk of looking dumb at the end of the season. But Timo Meier, let's not forget about him, right? He still hasn't had a season of getting over 50% of the team's power play time. Now with Evander Kane, again, if he's going to be out of the lineup, that opens up a spot. That's the spot that we thought Meier would get originally when Joe Pavelski left. So maybe now with Pavelski and Evander Kane gone, maybe now Meier finally can get that top power play time. And that could potentially be a decent top power play. Couture, Hurdle, LeBanc, Meier, then either Burns or Karlsson. Come on. And Meier, by the way, he's only 24 years old. It feels like he's been in the league forever. We've been talking about him forever, but he had a really good year back in 2018-19. He had 30 goals and 66 points. These last couple of years, he's fallen off a little bit and then a little bit more. The last year, everyone fell off for the Sharks, except for, I guess, Tomas Hurdle, who had a good year. But yeah, I think that Timo Meier is also someone that I'm potentially putting up my draft list a little higher now that I think about the preseason, and I think he'll do a lot better than he did last year. I don't know if he gets back to that 66 point pace, but I think it's definitely possible if he gets that power play time.
Yeah, it feels like he's been around for so long because his introduction to us was so successful. Everyone and their mother was talking about Timo Meier after he busted onto the scene with his great success. But yeah, it's been certainly more challenging since then. But yeah, maybe with a little bit more opportunity. I think I think that you're right that the Sharks overall are having their draft stock depressed because people are just not super excited about them and they haven't shown very much. I do wonder, certainly if you're in plus minus leagues, which you shouldn't be, but I think they're going to be chasing from behind a fair amount. We'll see if their new goalie tandem is going to be able to do anything for them. Yeah, obviously they've had not a ton of success in that area, but they did manage to get Martin Jones sent over to Philly, so at least they're not worrying about him anymore. All right, let's move away from the West Coast and head back east a little bit and talk about some Habs. So we've got Hoffman injured. He was certainly looking to be the kind of guy who was going to, put together something on that top power play, give them, a real trigger man there. And a lot of people were excited. I went out and grabbed him in that keeper league draft that we've been talking about right after, actually, we found out that he was going to be out for a bit, but I'm hoping that he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, if you're looking to grab someone off the waiver wire or pick someone up in a late round in your draft, I wonder if Josh Anderson or Jonathan Drouin are interesting possibilities with Hoffman to injure the year, to start the year. Injured to start the year. I'm going to try that one more time. I wonder if Josh Anderson or Jonathan Drouin could be interesting possibilities with Hoffman injured to start the year. We did see a power play deployment with Anderson, Drouin, and Dvorak that had a couple power play goals, but it was far from a full roster and the lines just looked really bizarre. So I would not read too much into that, but it does look like that trio and Toffoli, Suzuki, Caulfield seem to be the top two lines with Hoffman out. And just taking a stab here, what the power play might look like. I think maybe Toffoli, Suzuki, Caulfield, and Josh Anderson with Jeff Petrie as the power play QB might be how it looks to start the season. We've seen some success for Anderson out there on the power play and the limited time that he's had. I think he is the nicer option here just because he has that solid floor of shots and hits. He's the kind of guy who can get around 200 of each potentially. Even if he doesn't enjoy that power play one exposure in Hoffman's absence. So if I was just taking a guess, that's the guy I grab, because even if he misses out on the power play time, he's still going to give you something. I see him as the best option for that power play time, but I would not count on anything until we see that true power play one deployed. Either of these guys, any interest for you, Drouin or Anderson?
Well, I'm definitely more interested in Josh Anderson just because of that floor of peripherals, like you said. Jonathan Drouin, yes, it came out he was suffering from, what was it, like anxiety and insomnia. And that's the reason why I missed all that time last year. So hopefully he's back to 100%. But I don't know, it's been a while since he's been impressive enough in fantasy to be more than just like a streamer every now and then. I am kind of interested in Christian Dvorak, I got to say. He's the second line center. He's the one that we know is going to be there. When Hoffman comes back, someone gets bumped, Anderson or Drouin down to the third line, or Hoffman, like we don't know. But we know that Christian Dvorak will be there and could be like a solid center that gets you, I think, like 50, 55-ish points. So it depends if it's worthwhile to you in your league. Obviously, you're going to want to get in on that top line for the Habs before anyone else. Though I guess like Josh Anderson, like you said, pretty good if you're in a multi-category league. All right, so let's talk about some more lines. I've got two new top liners that I want to throw at you that I'm pretty interested in. And these are things that I was not expecting going into the season. So these are new names that we need to like readjust for, assuming they're still there, like within the time that people are listening to the show or in a week or so. But starting in Minnesota, it's been Joel Eriksson-Ek centering the top line of Kaprizov and Zuccarello, at least in practice. Kaprizov hasn't gotten into a preseason game yet. But so Joel Eriksson-Ek, JEE, he had a 44-point pace last year, mainly playing with Marcus Foligno and Jordan Greenway. He had over 100 hits. So just like Josh Anderson, he's already good for those peripherals, but I'd imagine he could be a really good sneaky pick late in your drafts, especially if he's going to be playing with Kaprizov in a bangers league. I think you could do a lot worse than taking a swing on Joel Eriksson-Ek. Like we were thinking, like just like a couple weeks ago, that like Marco Rossi, like it's so obvious that he's going to be the top line center. Like it seems like such a perfect fit for him. But I don't know. Rossi's been playing with like Boldy and Greenway on a line in training camp. So again, like obviously they're trying things out, and we'll have to see what Coach Eveson wants to do over in Minnesota. But if Joel Eriksson-Ek sticks on the top line, he becomes very interesting to me, and definitely someone I wouldn't leave undrafted in my leagues. And if it's in a bangers league, you maybe even take him in a mid round.
Yeah, I think that we're still going to see Rossi eventually ascend to that spot. Maybe not sooner rather than later, but sometime this season, I bet once he gets his comfort level up, this was a guy who was seen as very much ready to go in the NHL last season. So, and also I think Eriksson-Ek is a little more capable of playing sort of a shutdown role potentially. So I think that eventually if Rossi progresses the way we sort of hope that he does, we'll see him up on that top line. But in the short term, certainly Eriksson-Ek is quite interesting. And for as long as he can hold it, as you say, solid floor. And, anytime you're up next to Kaprizov, and Zuccarello had so much success in some very hot streaks last season, I could see that as being really appealing and someone who is widely available. I'd say take a stab on him. Certainly just be ready, listen to Short Chips, watch those game day lines and see what happens with that battle. But at least there are finally some, potentially productive centers to work with on the Wild, because we definitely did not have a whole lot of that last year.
Yeah, well, after Eriksson-Ek and Rossi, we're looking at like Ryan Hartman, Freddie Goodrow, Sturm. So yeah, hopefully Rossi and Eriksson-Ek can really pan out as two solid top six centers. But yeah, it might be a little while for Rossi. And while we're waiting, go grab your Joel Eriksson-Ek. And maybe I'll just throw out my other new potential top line center at you. Then we can end with the Kraken, who I know you wanted to talk about to end the show. But first, over in Chicago, how about this? I was not expecting this, but Tyler Johnson has spent the entire training camp so far centering Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat on both the top line and the top power play. I thought this was a lock that Kirby Dach would be getting that spot, both at even strength and on the power play with Kane and DeBrincat, but no, it's been Tyler Johnson, recent acquisition from Tampa. So I don't know, that's a pretty sweet looking situation for Tyjo, right? Especially if he's on the top power play, also with Jonathan Taves and Seth Jones. Like that could be a really strong top power play. I don't see why not grab Tyjo late in your draft just in case. Late in your draft just in case. Like again, he's been bad the last couple of seasons, but it was only 2018-19 that he put up 48 points, which is nothing to sneeze at. Of course, in that year, he was playing mostly with Kucherov in point, so that's going to help you. But again, Kane and DeBrincat, not too much of a downgrade from Kucherov in point, right? So if things break right and Tyler Johnson sticks on that line, and obviously there's no guarantee that he will, I think he's definitely someone that at this point, if you've already drafted, go grab him out of free agency. And if you haven't drafted, save him for a last round pick.
Yeah, I think that he's shown that he's the kind of player who can really excel when he is put out there with some serious talent. He, has not had so much of that over the last couple seasons and has certainly driven his stock down. But, if they're looking for someone who has a little more experience than Doc to play up on that top power play, even if it's temporary, and I imagine it is. I was tweeting about this earlier today. I don't see it as the kind of thing that lasts, but I went out and I grabbed him off the waiver wire in that keeper that we're working on. The big one obviously is Cupful Tier 1 that's drafting on Sunday. So we'll be able to talk about that a little more once it happens. But for now, definitely it is the keeper that, is the place where we can put our money where our mouth is. And so I did grab him just because I think, even if it's just the first few games there, he has the potential to maybe pop off and even hold on to that spot. Also excited to see Jonathan Taves get back out there and play after we missed him all of last year. Got some good playing time out there against the Wings, over 22 minutes. But he was not playing with the optimal wingers that you would like to see him with. Kubalik and Kurashev did get an assist. What do you think about Taves moving forward here?
Yeah, I'm just happy to see him get out there. We'll find out about the lines. Like if he's playing with Kubalik, that's not too bad, I don't think. Especially who else is really left, right? If it's Tyler Johnson with Kane and DeBrincat, then yeah, I'd expect Taves to be with Kubalik and then someone, I don't know, Alex Nylander, like Dylan Strome if he goes to the wing, or maybe like Kurashev, I don't know. But either way, right now, Taves with the whole season, like you said, with the chronic immune response syndrome, he's back. He's playing big minutes. He's a guy who had 60 points in 70 games in 2019-20. That's a 70-point pace. So he's definitely going to fall in your fantasy drafts below other 70-point guys. So it just depends on how much of himself is going to come back this season. But he's definitely being put in a decent situation. I already mentioned the top power play. He's been practicing on there. So yeah, don't let him fall too far. Don't forget about Jonathan Taves. Really excited to see him back.
Yeah, I'll hedge a little bit and say I expect him to be maybe a little closer to 60 after having a year off and at his age. But he's been so remarkably consistent. I don't think we can downgrade him too much because we've seen him just kind of put up very similar points numbers season after season. And obviously having access to that great top power play, even when nothing else is working in Chicago, usually that power play is on fire. So you love to see it. Anyone who's going to be out there with Kane, for as long as Kane can keep it up, I think that's really good. One more group to talk about here before we finish up a slightly longer than typical short shift. So we don't want to get too winded here. It's early in the season. We may not be in game shape. We don't want to be, on our bag skate and looking like OEL out there. So I just wanted to talk about, maybe it's been done to death. If you've been listening to hockey podcasts, lots of people talking about line one for the Kraken, but they are definitely getting some buzz this preseason. We've seen some nice chemistry between Giordano, McCann, and Schwartz on Wednesday night that led to a great breakout and a goal for Gio against his old team, which was pretty cool. Getting the Gio chant in the building was pretty excellent. I think McCann is really interesting. He was quite productive last year. He was 39th overall in points per 60 at 5v5 for players with at least 250 minutes. And this was despite having his second lowest point participation of his career at only 55%. And he was 498th in 5v5 time on ice per game from that group. So only about less than 12 minutes of even strength ice time. So that was looking a little bit grim. He obviously won't have Crosby to help him this season, but he should see a significant increase in 5v5 minutes and likely an increase in points percentage as the play is more likely to move through him this year. He's only 26% rostered, and he has an ADP of 166 when he is being picked. So this is a low-cost line one, power play one guy who could be really interesting. I think his ceiling probably tops off around 65 points, but that's a pretty appealing upside at his ADP or off the waiver wire.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hold on. I'm looking at that number now, and I just wrote it down while I was doing my research, and I wonder if I set it to have that 250-minute filter, having him down at 498, because that seems like an insanely huge number.
So do you want to look and retake it?
Yeah, let me look and retake if I can. I just don't know if I set if I had that 250-minute filter. No, I do. Minimum 250 minutes. No freaking way. That's crazy. Okay. So should I jump in now?
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I believe it was Dom Lucian on my show with him where he said that maybe Jared McCann is going to be this year's Jonathan Marchessault. Remember, this is a guy who seemed like he was decent on Florida in 2016-17. He had his own version of a breakout with 51 points, kind of similar to McCann's breakout last year with Pittsburgh. Now, all of a sudden, he goes to a new team where he's going to be top line, best deployment possible, playing with Schwartz and Eberle. So, yeah, if he can stick with that deployment, maybe he can have a breakout like Marchessault did and get above that 60 point, maybe even approach 65, like you said, as his ceiling. So yeah, Jared McCann, obviously don't let him go undrafted, and maybe he's a guy you potentially reach for because we don't know. This Seattle team is, I don't know. I mean, during training camp, they seem pretty exciting so far. We'll see what they can do. Like, don't go too crazy. And I guess Yanni Gourd's gonna be back at some point, and he'll maybe push someone. Though, if that top line of McCann, Schwartz, and Eberle is looking good, maybe then Gourde can go play with Donskoy or something. It's not like Gourde's been a top line player on Tampa, right? So it's not like it's a guaranteed spot for him. Jared McCann's the one who seems like he has the biggest offensive ceiling right now to center that top line.
Yeah, the excitement about Gourde is that he was on the best third line in hockey, but it was the third line. And I know it's on Tampa, and Tampa is obviously very deep. But I would be, if McCann has some success up on that top line, and we've seen him have success with top line-esque players, and obviously he's not playing with Crosby out there, as I mentioned, but I do think that he is someone who, could maybe break out a little bit with some more ice time. Another person that you might make as a comparable would be Verana. Maybe he's not as much of an analytics darling as Verana, but the kind of guy who, on a minute per minute basis has been very successful and just hasn't seen so many of those actual minutes. So if he's getting them in Seattle, that could be a very exciting spot for him.
All right. And yeah, and don't forget also Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle. Make sure not to leave these Kraken too far into your drafts undrafted because, a top line, top power play guy is good on most teams in the NHL. And I think it's going to be pretty decent on Seattle, at least worth taking a look. So, okay, Lewis, what a blast. Short shifts. This is a whirlwind. Are we done?
We've wrapped up here for today. This was really fun. I so appreciate having you on the show. I'm looking forward, obviously, to having Ben back behind the mic as well. It's going to be cool to get to move the team around a little bit and try out some different line combos and see what the people enjoy. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We want to give thanks to Kevin Hebert and Jeremy Facillo and John Newhold for all of their help over the summer, especially, getting the leagues running and running cacuffle.com and making the Discord so awesome. Our super patrons, Tom, Derek, Rob, and Patty. Our logos were created by BrandonWeeb.com. Our intro and outro music by Pat Roach. Research with help from Dauber Hockey. You put your mouse on it, and now I can't read the whole line above it because it just says Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't even know you were going to read all this.
Oh, well, I don't know. You put it on there. All right.
That's just the sheet I always copy for Brian.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
go for it. Yeah, Dauber Hockey. You could also just say whatever you used at this point.
Well, yeah. So mostly frozen tools. So research with Dauber Hockey, frozen tools, natural stat trick, and Elon. We are at the end of our show. So I will remind our viewers, until we see you again, play smart and keep your shifts short.
Boom.
Oh man, that was a quick moving show there.
Yeah, I liked it. We covered a lot. It'll be around a half hour, I think, after the edits. So I guess short shifts is normally closer to like 20 minutes. So, well, it's the first one. We got to cover a lot of ground, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just fine. I've got a kid just came down, so I need to talk to him. Do you need do you want me to send you my Audacity?
Yeah, yes, please. All right. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I guess I'll turn off the show here. Lewis is going to go tend to his children. And
I don't know how much keeping all my sons we want to listen to here, but we'll get moving along.
And then tune in next time on Sunday. We're going to be having the Cupful Tier 1 auction draft starting at 1, probably going until midnight. I don't know, but it's going to be a long show. So if you want to come watch us live, see you then. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you get to see Dave draft on my behalf. I'm very nervous. I'm totally staying away from my phone. I'm going to be totally tuned out. So I'll have a whole exciting roster to look at when I get out of this wedding.
Yeah, that's wild. I wish you were there, Dave. I thought that finally we got rid of Dave in the Tier 1 draft. He's always like a big wild card in there. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. All right. We'll talk to you later. Do you want MP3 or Wave?
Let's do the highest quality you can. Yeah, give me the Wave.
Right? Oh,
no, I
Wave,
think the Wave would be higher. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
All right. Peace, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I ended the